They thought they could break him. The HOA's letter came like a threat, a cold, lifeless piece of paper accusing him of violations he'd never committed. The fine? $250,000, an outrageous number that felt like a cruel joke. But this wasn't a prank. It was a calculated move meant to humiliate him, to push him out and make him an example. He was a black man living in a gated neighborhood where wealth and power walked hand in hand, where homeowners, associations ruled like monarchs behind walls of privilege. They didn't know he was no ordinary homeowner. They had no idea that the very land their million-dollar homes stood on, their pristine lawns, their private pools, their perfectly paved roads, belonged to him. And when that truth surfaced, the empire of threats and intimidation they'd built would crumble overnight. This isn't just a tale of revenge. It's a story of history reclaimed, of quiet strength, and of how one man exposed an entire community's prejudice, then walked away owning everything they tried to take. The neighborhood was picture perfect. Streets curved through green lawns that looked as if they'd been trimmed with scissors. Luxury cars sparkled in long driveways, and security cameras watched every corner like hawks. This was the kind of place meant to represent wealth, status, and exclusivity. But beneath all that polish, there was tension. Tension that ran generations deep. At the center of it all was Marcus Carter, a self-made businessman who had worked his way from nothing to success. He'd bought a beautiful home right in the middle of this gated paradise. To the outside world, Marcus was living proof of the American dream. But to his neighbors, he was out of place, a man whose very presence unsettled their picture-perfect world. At first, Marcus brushed off the subtle slights, cold stares at neighborhood barbecues, neighbors clutching their dogs closer as he walked by, the HOA board showing up randomly to inspect his lawn. Then the letters started. First, they fined him for grass that was too tall. Next, his driveway supposedly wasn't up to code. They even said his home's paint trim wasn't in compliance with community standards. Marcus saw it for what it was, harassment dressed up in official paperwork. He paid the smaller fines, hoping the nonsense would stop. It didn't. The letters became more frequent, the accusations more absurd, and then came the hammer, a $250,000 fine claiming his property line violated HOA rules. Pay within 30 days or face legal action, they warned. Marcus knew then this was no misunderstanding. This was an attack. But Marcus wasn't intimidated. What the HOA didn't know was that Marcus wasn't just a businessman. He was also a man who understood land, property law, and family history. He decided to dig deep. For weeks he combed through records, courthouse archives, and old deeds. And what he uncovered shocked even him. Decades earlier, before this neighborhood became a luxury development, the entire area had been a large farm owned by Marcus's grandfather. When developers purchased the land, they'd chopped it into dozens of plots, selling them off one by one. But a small, crucial oversight in the paperwork left something extraordinary intact. Marcus's family still legally owned portions of the property, including roads, common areas, and even the HOA's prized clubhouse. For years, the HOA had strutted around, certain they held all the power. But in truth, they'd been operating on land they didn't own. Their authority? Built on sand. Marcus quietly hired lawyers and built a case so airtight it couldn't be challenged. He stayed calm as harassment escalated. The HOA sent inspectors to his property, plastered his door with violation notices, and whispered lies about him at community meetings. But Marcus was patient. He waited for the right moment. That moment came when the HOA called him to a board meeting, determined to deal with him once and for all. Marcus walked in calmly, carrying a heavy folder of documents. As they scolded him, demanding payment, he laid the first deed on the table, a certified legal document showing his ownership of critical parts of the neighborhood. The room went silent. He showed survey maps proving that the clubhouse, the gated entrances, and the neighborhood's private streets were all on land he owned. The HOA president tried to dismiss him, but Marcus was ready. He had affidavits, historical tax records, and a court order confirming his rights. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. Marcus wasn't just another homeowner anymore. He was their landlord. Within weeks, their lawyers confirmed it. Marcus was right. Their HOA charter was invalid. Their supposed authority evaporated overnight. The very man they'd tried to fine into submission now had the legal right to evict them all. But Marcus didn't want revenge. He didn't need to humiliate them further. The truth had done that already. Instead, he used his power to rewrite the HOA charter. He stripped away their abusive policies and made sure no homeowner, no matter their race or background, would ever face harassment like he had. Word of the case spread quickly, shocking people across the country. It revealed the dark side of HOAs, the quiet racism that still lingered in neighborhoods that claimed to be exclusive. Marcus's victory wasn't just about land. It was about dignity. It was proof that knowledge could dismantle power, that quiet strength could outlast arrogance. And as he walked through that same neighborhood, past homes filled with people who once sneered at him but now nodded in respect, Marcus knew he'd changed more than just property lines. He'd changed the way they saw him, and maybe even themselves. But his story raises a sobering question. What if he hadn't had the resources or determination to fight back? How many others are silently crushed by systems designed to push them out? Sometimes justice doesn't come from courtrooms or headlines. Sometimes it comes when the people who were underestimated stand tall and refuse to be moved.